Part 20. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 191. 190 Ruin World Group. For the students sitting in front of him who were obviously just graduated from university, Chen Yuyan had nothing to look down on. In other words, choosing such a young man is exactly what he wants. Because such fresh graduates do not have so much capital background behind them, they are relatively clean, and when faced with such an unimaginable existence of tiberium mines, they will not involve too many interests. And most importantly, cultivate loyalty. If these young people have enough potential to grow together with their own business groups in this world, then their sense of belonging and loyalty are definitely not comparable to those who poach from other companies halfway. Hello, my name is Huana, this is Igor, and this is Liang Li. We are both graduates of the University of Texas at Austin's Business School. You are, the super big girl that Miss Carly said, boss. The black woman in the trio showed her big white teeth and smiled heartily. What's your relationship with Carly Lloyd? Chen Yuyan asked. The Yangguo international student named Liang Li wore a pair of big glasses and replied weakly, we accepted Miss Carly's poverty bursary, so when we are employed in the future, we will give priority to those from the Lloyd family. Food company. What do you study? Chen Yuyan asked the student from Yan Kingdom. International trade, and I can speak 6 languages, Chinese, Japanese, English, French, German, and Spanish. But relatively speaking, my German and Spanish are relatively average. I hope you don't mind. Liang Li replied in a low voice. What about the global business information company you established? Chen Yuyan asked again. This time it was the student named Igor who answered, relatively speaking, he was more mature and stable. He is 1.8 meters tall, with brown curly hair, and a well-proportioned figure. Although the shirt on his body is cheap, it is also very neat. It's a company we registered as we were going to practice our hands. Ms. Carly injected us with $10,000 as the startup capital. So far, we have done 2 businesses, one of which is a supermarket near the school. We do it for them a business marketing analysis report. Igor said, there are 5 of us, and Matthew and Corona didn't come here today because of family business. So, sir, are you planning to? Huona smiled at Chen Yuyan with a very commercial smile. Chen Yuyan smiled and said, my name is Chen Yuyan, and you can call me Brother Yan or Boss Yan in the future. You are all high-achieving students recommended by Carly to me, and your background is very clean. So, I do have a very good order. Big business is looking for you. How big is the business? Huona's eyes lit up, and she asked quickly. Chen Yuyan took out a bank card and put it on the table. Here is $200,000, I will tell you the password later. I will buy your global business consulting company now, that is to say, if you agree, sign. After signing the contract, you are my employees. As soon as they heard that there were $200,000, the trio's eyes lit up. They looked at each other and exchanged opinions in their eyes. Then Huona gently pushed the bank card back, with some doubts, sir, we haven't done any work for you yet, and we still deserve the money. To put it bluntly, it is a counter-offer. $200,000 is a lot less, and it is definitely not much. A few high-achieving business school students will be changed soon. Even if they are poor students, it will be difficult to really impress them. Chen Yuyan shook his head and said, the $200,000 is just a deposit. If you can complete my test, then you will get this. With that said, he took out another bank card and put it on the table. Sir, this is $5 million. Chen Yuyan said flatly. The 3 students' eyes widened almost at the same time, and their breathing became rapid. It was obvious that Liang Li, who was more introverted, was trembling. Sir, do you intend to use this money? Huona's tongue was a little bit unsteady now. Chen Yuyan pushed both cards over and said, I will give you a project, and you need to come up with a practical business plan as soon as possible. If you can convince me, I will hand over the $5 million to you for operation. Set up a group company. And your global business information company will also be included in this group. As for the name of the group, well, let's call it Ash World. Igor immediately sat upright, and said very seriously, Sir, no, Boss Yan. You want us to do a project, just say it. I swear, in order to complete this project, I can even sit on the toilet to work, and save time in going to the toilet. The other two immediately nodded like chickens pecking at rice. So finding fresh graduates is the benefit, Chen Yuyan smiled with satisfaction. Although their ability must be much worse, their Tiberium mine project is not afraid of failure. Because the core technology, Tiberium refining technology, is in his own hands, and he can guarantee that the world will not be able to replicate it within 10 years. After all, this has been verified. Anyway, in the world of Command and Conquer, according to Wang Jinsong, GDI can only purchase this technology from Nod at the beginning. After the war between the two sides, GDI can only copy it as it is, but cannot make any improvements. It was several years after the end of the First War when GDI could actually design and manufacture its own refining plant. As far as this world is concerned, Chen Yuyan does not think that the American technological power here can be compared with the GDI with the G7 as its core, and it is polite enough to say that 10 years have passed. As long as this bottom line is kept, no matter what mistakes these students make, even if they lose money. In Chen Yuyan's vision, loyalty is more important than anything else in his business group. He took out a document and handed it over and said, I discovered a mineral from an alien. This mineral has a characteristic, that is, it can absorb almost all substances to proliferate itself. And I also have a technology that can, after liquefying this mineral, I have a technology that can use this liquefied mineral to generate electricity, and the power generation efficiency is extremely high, at least 100 times that of coal. Liang Li's eyes lit up, he raised his eyes and said, ha ha. Alien minerals. This subject is really interesting. If the teacher can give us such a subject when we are in school, then our course will be interesting. Many. There was also a relaxed smile on Igor's face, obviously he also thought this was just a false subject. He smiled and asked, so, Boss Yan, this wonderful alien mineral can really be absorbed by anything? The more it is absorbed, the faster it grows. This mineral is called tiberium, and it reacts very slowly to metal and glass products. But the absorption effect on organic matter is the best, and if the energy contained in the target is higher, the growth rate of tiberia will be faster. The sooner. And you must pay attention, this mineral is highly toxic to the human body, and it is highly contagious. If it gets out of control, the consequences will be very serious. Chen Yuyan said. Then the technical threshold is to use this, tiberium mine to generate electricity and liquefy technology, right? Then how high are the thresholds for these two technologies? Horna asked. It's very high. It's impossible to be plagiarized for at least 10 years. Chen Yuyan replied. Then this topic is actually very simple, right? We have an unattainable technical threshold, and the supply of raw materials only needs to control the import and export, but it is actually difficult for others to obtain. After all, our raw materials are all consumed by ourselves. This is equivalent to a closed supply chain. Through this, we'll soon form a terrifying business empire. Huona said very optimistically. No, I think Boss Yan's meaning is not limited to this point. Igor pondered. Have you considered how the US government will react to the appearance of an extraterrestrial substance? It is impossible for the US government to agree to it before it is safe. It is even possible to nationalize this mineral, so that we will lose everything immediately. Liang Li also said next to him, if the power generation efficiency of coal is 100 times, and the source is so easy, we must also consider the issue of international relations. If the amount is not large, it's fine, but this kind of extraterrestrial mineral, in fact, some uncontrollable factors are included in the growth. Once the scale is formed, it may break the balance of international power, and maybe, a war will break out. Huona said with emotion, "It's a super boss. There are so many traps in this fictional alien mineral. This topic is really too deep. I have to consult with my classmates in the School of International Relations. It is best to establish a basic international relations model, predict the reactions of various countries, and then come up with a response plan." Liang Li said. The Patent Law, the Bureau of Secrecy, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, all these factors must be taken into consideration. Igor also immediately entered the state. Chen Yuyan watched their reactions with satisfaction, knocked on the table and said, "How about it, do you want to earn $200,000? Of course." The three high-achieving students from the business school replied in unison. "Very well, then I will give you 7 days to come up with a business plan. If I am satisfied with this plan," he tapped another bank card, "the $5 million will be used for capital injection, establish the Ruin World Group, and you will be the core members of this group. Thanks to Lao Siji, Samwick, and Wu Song for the 100 starting point coins. All Heavens Unlimited Base." Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 192. 191 Ne Beta Parasite Production. A white light flashed, and Chen Yuyan returned to the world of Command and Conquer. After returning here, he immediately issued an order in his mind: "System. Start developing the technology of Ne Beta parasites immediately." He has already completed the research on the basic Nemesis parasite and the technology research on the Ne Alpha parasite before. But now he hasn't fully rolled out the construction of the Ne Alpha parasite cultivation tank, because it is not particularly urgent to let his B.O.W have a higher IQ. On the contrary, Chen Yuyan needs a powerful armored force very, very urgently now. Tialong covered his head like a lingering cloud. He didn't know when there would be terrible lightning and thunder, and he didn't know when there would be powerful rain and hail. This is a world where wars are going on all the time. War, especially large-scale modern warfare, armored units are always the mainstream. Even B.O.W can only appear as an auxiliary unit. If you don't believe me, let the T-103 Tyrant try to fight against the armored division. Ne Beta parasite research starts, it takes 4 hours, and 3 tons of low-purity refined tiberium has been deducted. Fortunately, the Ne Beta parasite technology is still a level 2 technology, which is the top level of technology under the advanced T-virus research, so the cost is not as exaggerated as the Red Queen of level 3 technology. Of course, the more advanced umbrella technology can only be unlocked after researching advanced T-virus research. In fact, the Ne Beta parasite is really not very advanced. If it must be described, it is just adding a more advanced chip to B.O, and the things it can do are still very limited. But for Chen Yuyan, it was a qualitative improvement. Using the Ne Beta virus to control the T-72 main battle tank is actually not difficult to do with Umbrella's technical level, but their research directions are different. Umbrella's research is a cheap B.O.W that can be mass-produced, and most of their customers are third-world countries. For those countries, the reason for choosing B.O.W is because they can't afford tanks, aircraft, and cannons. To put it bluntly, use B.O.W to control the tank? This is really nonsense. Okay. I already have money to buy tanks, why buy your B.O.W? Not to mention that if the Ne Beta parasite is used to control the tank, the service life of the tank will not exceed 1 year at most. Because the parasite's secretions, mucus, and the like will quickly dampen the circuits inside the tank. Of course, these were not problems for Chen Yuyan at all. He immediately let the level 3 production line of the manufacturing center continue to produce T-72 main battle tanks, and the level 2 production line of one of the subsidiary manufacturing stations began to produce two types of infantry fighting vehicles, AMX-10P and AMX-VSI. The research on NE-beta parasites has been completed, and now the NE-beta parasite culture tanks can be built. NE-beta parasite. Construction conditions, Level 2, Manufacturing Center. Construction resources, 0.5 kilograms of biomass, 1 kilogram of low-purity liquid tiberium. Build time, 30 minutes. Function, it can be implanted into B.O.W developed based on T-virus, and can provide B.O.W with more refined behavior patterns according to preset programs. However, due to the instability of the parasite, the chance of B.O.W mutation will increase. The mutated B.O.W may be out of control. Remarks, this parasite has scalability. After obtaining more data, more models can be studied to unlock the corresponding NE-beta parasite function types. I rely on this thing to be so expensive. Chunyuan couldn't help complaining, a hunter alpha that big only needs 2 kilograms of refined tiberium, and this little bit of parasite needs 1 kilogram. Looking at the technology list now, it turns out that there are several branches under the technology of NE-beta parasites, namely T-72 tank operator, AMX-10P operator, AMX-VSI operator. The liquid tiberium needed for research is in from 100 kilograms to 500 kilograms. There is also Me-24 hind gunship operator, but this one has a progress bar on it, it's only about 5%. Seeing this 5%, Chunyuan's eyelids twitched wildly, and his mood became unhappy. These are actually the results of Chunyuan's return to the world of Resident Evil. While he was discussing with the students from Global Business Information, the Atlantic Institute continued to conduct research under the auspices of Murphy's and Four Eyes. They successfully carried out the data input of T-72 tank, AMX-10P and AMX-VSI-3 vehicles, and carried out the cultivation of NE-beta parasites in these prototype vehicles. Fortunately, Murphy's had samples of NE-beta parasites in his hand, so they could breed NE-beta parasites before Chunyuan had studied this technology and built a production line. However, what is more tragic is the Me-24 hind gunship. Because it is very difficult for you, a small buyer, to buy this thing in the arms market, and the African warlord General Andrew that Rupee knew also held the Me-24 in his hand like a treasure. So in the end, Chunyuan could only spend 300 points to use the infinite base to build one and put it in the Atlantic Research Institute, and within 3 days, he fell. That's right, because of the misaspiration of the NE-beta parasite, the helicopter fell directly and fell into a pile of scrap iron, which could only be recycled into resources with the collection function. After all, helicopters are no better than tanks, and the difficulty of operation is completely different. Although it's normal to drop a plane, but at the same time, Chunyuan's 300 points are also dropped, which makes my heart ache. In order to complete the test, 3 T-72 main battle tanks, 2 infantry fighting vehicles, and 1 Me-24 armed helicopter, this is 1,100 points. He now has 6,050 points left. He can only count on his power rewards in the world of Resident Evil to live, 40 points per day. Maybe when his Ruin World group is actually opened, this reward will be even more. After completing the technical research of the 3 existing armored vehicle operators, Chunyuan began to produce NE-beta parasites. But soon he discovered another design that made him very crazy, that is, the culture tank for NE-beta parasites. After producing a parasite, it can't produce any more. The parasite must be taken out and used, and the next one can only be produced after the culture tank is emptied. Fortunately, this kind of cultivation tank building does not require many resources, and it is only a level 2 building, covering an area of only about 0.5 square meters, which is equivalent to a large vase. Chenyuyan specially found a laboratory to focus on building the culture tanks for Ne beta parasites. Then Chenyuyan handed over the relevant data to Wang Jinsang. In this data document, Four Eyes explained in detail the breeding method and data input method of the Ne beta parasite. But now the data input part has been taken care of by the infinite base, and in fact it is just cultivating parasites. Afterwards, Chenyuyan drove to the Helang base, where he built a Ne beta parasite cultivation tank, and prepared to deal with the long-delayed problem of the tracker. Ne beta parasite, if the data is not input, then the function is only to increase the IQ of the implanted B.O.W, and its behavior pattern is still the same as before the BOW. However, when Chenyuyan opened the door of the basement and came to the place where the pursuer was locked, he was immediately stunned. The tracker is now unrecognizable. It's not what it used to be. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 193. 192 Mutated Tracker. The former stalker, after several mutations, has completely lost its human form and turned into a monster lying on the ground. The ribs of the ribcage split forward and protruded, mutating into a monstrous mouth. The original head shrank very small, and the body was covered with pustules full of venom, and a large number of tentacles grew from around the body, which looked extremely disgusting. But now the tracker has grown a lot of tiberium crystals. Moreover, these crystals are very large, breaking out from its body, especially those pustules full of venom on its body are the hardest hit. Almost every pustules have crystals growing out of them. This makes it look like a hedgehog now, with tiberium crystals all over its body, and even its two forelimbs are too damaged by the crystals to support the body, so it can only lie on the ground and slowly wriggle. Red Empress 00002, how is the tracker doing recently? Chenyuyan asked without rushing up. The projection of Red Queen 00002 appeared at the door, and she said lightly, after the tracker fell asleep for about 10 days, a large number of tiberium crystals began to grow in his body, and the connection with the infinite base was also cut off. For 3 days, it started limited activity and showed some aggressiveness, almost killing a soldier. Master. Understood. Chenyuyan walked towards the pursuer. I should have reminded you that the stalkers are aggressive now, Master. Red Queen 00002 said, I understand your desire to die, but it would be a pity if you really died. Master. It's okay, I can handle it. Chenyuyan said as he walked, anyway, neither the T-virus nor tiberium can hurt him now, at worst, he will fight with the tracker. And he has always had a doubt in his heart, and it just happened to confirm it. As he approached, the tracker started to move. It slowly climbed up from the ground. Although it staggered, it still opened its bloody mouth. The sharp teeth that had begun to crystallize were incomplete and extremely ferocious. However, Chenyuyan remained unmoved at all, and just continued to approach the pass step by step. Then he shot suddenly like lightning, and a small test tube flew out of his hand, and threw it into the mouth of the pursuer at once. The tracker crushed the test tube with a click, and all the red liquid inside went into its stomach. Then it suddenly burst into a terrible roar. Seeing the tiberium crystals on it grow at a speed visible to the naked eye, getting bigger and bigger. Roar. After roaring for a while, the tracker stared at Chenyuyan again. The tentacles on its body also stretched out, trying to entangle him, but halfway through it, it couldn't move anymore. Same as that time, Chenyuyan's heart shuddered, he simply stepped forward, and directly stretched his arm into the pursuer's mouth. The tracker obviously wanted to bite it down, but his body was shaking and twitching non-stop, and the big mouth couldn't move anything. Sure enough. Ever since he met the experimenter Holger Baker of the Silver Group, who was infected by tiberium in the Underground Research Institute of Raccoon City last time, Chen Yuyan has been wondering whether he is interested in these tiberiums who have drank his blood. Subvariant creatures have absolute control. Now it seems that it is indeed the case. Master, now you should be able to implant the Ne beta parasite into the tracker. Master. Red Queen 00002 said. I don't think it's necessary. Chen Yuyan said, now this tracker is no longer in the category of T-virus BOW. I doubt the effect of Ne beta parasite. He looked at the pursuer who was still struggling, and said, it's time to give you a new name, well, let's call it DeWang. Okay, come with me, and I will take you to Wangjinsang. Just right, study the mutation of the T-virus B.O.W. after being corroded by tiberium. However, the tracker was still lying there shaking his head constantly. Chen Yuyan sneered, suddenly burst into motion from stillness, the ground under his feet exploded suddenly, he jumped in front of the pursuer like a bullet, and kicked its big mouth. Boom! The tracker's huge body was kicked several meters away by Chen Yuyan's kick, and hit the wall hard. Chen Yuyan, who has undergone secondary muscle strength enhancement and secondary muscle strength enhancement, is now a monster himself. Let's go, rhubarb. Chen Yuyan said coldly. The tracker was completely honest now, it shook its head again, and followed obediently, really like a dog. Although the problem of the tracker seems to be solved now, the shortcoming of B.O.W's inability to fight in the tiberium erosion zone for a long time still cannot be solved. He can't feed every B.O.W with a little of his own blood, right? The current solution is to let Wang Jinsang really move to study the mutation of the combination of the T-virus B.O.W and tiberium. Anyway, he used to do this before, so it's better than teaching Yi to read and write in the base all the time now. Let the tracker climb into the carriage by himself, and Chen Yuyan drove all the way back to Nuwa's base. As soon as I entered, I saw a humanoid robot with a height of about 1.8 meters and slender limbs carrying the wreckage of a robot towards the interior of the base. Seeing Chen Yuyan approaching, the robot turned around and said, "Hi, Commander Mr. Chen Yuyan, nice to meet you." After speaking, it carried the remains of the robot, opened the door and walked into the laboratory. Chen Yuyan heard it say inside, "Miss Yi, Mr. Wang Jinsang, Mr. Chen Yuyan has returned." As soon as the words fell, I saw a graceful figure running out like a bird, and jumped into Chen Yuyan's arms, shouting loudly, "Dad! Dad! You are finally back." Chen Yuyan smiled. In fact, although he was delayed in the world of Resident Evil for 10 days, he did not leave this world. So to put it bluntly, didn't he just go to the Black Wolf base for a few hours? But Yi is still so happy. What a good daughter. At this time, Wang Jinsang also came out. He pointed to the NS-4 robot and said, "This robot is amazing. How did you do it? It has almost the same intelligence as humans. This is a product from another time and space, and I don't know the specific principle. But it doesn't matter, as long as it is easy to use. First, send the first batch of NS-4 robots to Xingfu village. I am going to start the construction of the village." Chen Yuyan said, "By the way, you used to work with Tailong, right?" Wang Jinsang nodded and said, "Indeed, but I'm just a very low-level person, and I can't get in touch with two core things." "Then what kind of strength can you see?" Chen Yuyan asked. "He has an army of more than 10,000 people, controls more than a dozen forsaken villages, and has a large number of armored units. In fact, I have always suspected that the Forsaken have their own social settlements, such as large cities, for example, the industrial system and the like, but I have no way of knowing these. There are 4 commanders under him, and each commander also controls his own territory and his own army. So if he really starts to mobilize in his own territory, his strength may skyrocket to 30,000 to 40,000 people. Wang Jinsong said in a deep voice. Chen Yuyan's face became serious. Thanks to the book friend 2019010216442960 for the reward of 100 starting coins. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 194. 193 Ion Storm Comes Again. The two chatted for a while, and Wang Jinsong led Chen Yuyan into the laboratory, only to see that the NS-4 robot inside was putting the wreckage of the robot that had just been carried in on the ground, and there were already more than 10 robots here. Chen Yuyan looked over and found that these robots were the CE-2 engineering robots that he dug out when he excavated the buried part of the Nuwa base. He didn't forget that he had scanned this kind of robot several times before, but the cores were all damaged, so although more than a dozen were scanned, the data integrity was only 5 or 60%. However, after he successively extracted the crab spider engineering robot and the NS-4 civilian robot, the need for the CE-2 engineering robot was not so urgent, and he almost forgot about it. Are you repairing this kind of robot? Chen Yuyan asked. It's almost done, it will be ready soon. Wang Jinsong went to the workbench again, and carefully continued the repair work with the tools he brought. Yi, help me adjust the electromagnetic output of this magnetic restraint device. Wait a moment. What's the situation? Chen Yuyan's eyes were so wide open that his eyeballs almost fell off. However, she saw Yi walking over indifferently, and responded lightly, okay. Then she went to the laptop next to her, clicked a few times on the keyboard, and then reached out her hand to a device in the chest cavity of the robot. Toggle gently. No, let me stroke it. Chen Yuyan rubbed his forehead and was speechless for a while. Yi, I remember you just learned to speak not long ago, right? Yes, Dad. Yi didn't look up, still focused on his work, but his voice was still sweet. I see, Uncle Wang, it's fun, let's go together. Chen Yuyan suddenly felt that his IQ had been hit by a 10,000-point reduction in dimensionality, and his whole body was overwhelmed by lightning. Among other things, if he is asked to watch Yi and Wang Jinsong repair the robot now, he can only look confused. The only things he can recognize are wires and circuit boards, and he doesn't know what they are used for. That, Yi, can you understand? Chen Yuyan asked in a low voice, holding his last hope. Yi nodded, and happily showed Chen Yuyan the electromagnetic restraint device in his hand. Yes. Dad. This, particle balancer, this, positive charge generator, this, helical tube, this, Faraday insulation device. While talking, she finished the work that Wang Jinsong had assigned, and reinstalled the instrument back into the robot's chest. Over there, Wang Jinsong finally carried out some procedures. Soon, various instruments and equipment in the robot began to operate, the electronic eyes also lit up, and the lens continuously adjusted the focus. Then, the CE-2 engineering robot sits up directly from the workbench. Haha. It's fixed. Wang Jinsong laughed out loud with relief, and raised his hand to give him a high five. However, Yi threw himself into Chen Yuyan's arms as soon as he turned his head, rubbing his head on his chest. Dad. Dad. It's fixed. Wang Jinsong withdrew his hand in embarrassment, his eyes were full of the disappointment of a single dog being sprinkled with dog food. Good boy. I knew Yi was the best. Chen Yuyan stroked Yi's smooth black hair, then took out a tiberium crystal and handed it to her. That's right. It's only been a few days, and my IQ has already been crushed one by one. What a good daughter. Yi happily took it, and started to eat it in big mouthfuls, making a clicking sound, as if he was eating glass. Chen Yuyan walked over, put his hands on the repaired CE-2 engineering robot, and scanned silently. After scanning, the CE-2 engineering robot has been entered into the infinite base database and can be built. CE-2 Engineering Robot. Construction Requirements, Level 2 Manufacturing Center. Construction Resources, 130 kilograms of metal, 5 kilograms of low-purity refined tiberium. Build time, 90 minutes. Function, without AI, activities are carried out according to preset procedures, and can be engaged in less difficult work, mainly for equipment maintenance and repair. But relevant data must be entered. Seeing this introduction, Chunyuan compared it with the other two robots, and found that the three robots in his hands can be said to be complementary. The crab spider type engineering robot is the most advanced, capable of undertaking the most complicated mechanical maintenance work, and has enough engine horsepower to carry out large-scale infrastructure construction. The NS-4 civilian robot is the smartest, has AI, can communicate with people basically, and can do the most work. But there is no way to perform professional work. Now this CE-2 robot can be used as a supplement to the crab spider type engineering robot, completing some trivial maintenance work for the crab spider type engineering robot, so that they can perform more delicate and useful tasks. Well, the production line in the manufacturing center is still not enough. There are so many things to be produced, but there are only 3 production lines. And he still has a problem that has not been resolved, that is, including the T-72 tank, the artillery ammunition for those armored vehicles must be produced by the manufacturing center. The last time he drew a lottery, he only got the ordinary bullet production line, which solved the problem of bullets. However, it cannot solve the problem of large caliber shells and special bullets, such as the high explosive bullets of the Golden Gunner. The armored vehicles produced by the manufacturing center will come with a full tank of fuel and ammunition after the construction is completed, but if you want to continue to supply, you have to figure out your own way. If the scale of the armored force is to be expanded now, then the problem of ammunition must be solved. Only in this way can the production line of the manufacturing center be freed to carry out more valuable construction work. However, these things can't be counted on the lottery of the infinite base system every time. Things like shells are better to find their own way. At least it shouldn't be difficult to find the factory for the shells. Wait until the things here are almost dealt with, let's go to Torch City. After all, it is the closest big city to here, although the distance is only 100 or 200 kilometers, and in such an end-time environment, the road is definitely not so smooth. Just as Chunyuan was thinking this way, suddenly, the surrounding lights flickered violently, accompanied by the sound of electricity. He raised his head abruptly, and his first reaction was that Nuwa's base was under attack. Red Empress. Report the situation immediately. Chunyuan said loudly. Detected, strong, electromagnetic, wave, main. The holographic image of Red Queen 00001 appeared, but it was flickering, and there was a strong interference. Wang Jinsong jumped up suddenly, and said loudly, turn off all wireless communication devices and spare power. The ion storm is coming. Ming. Guan, the Red Queen 00001 flickered for a while, and the projection disappeared, and at the same time, the entire base fell into darkness. Chunyuan quickly ran out of the base, only to see dark clouds swirling in the sky, and cloud clusters so huge that it was hard to imagine began to gather, and there was a faint smell of rotten eggs in the air. The clouds in the sky became bigger and bigger, and finally even formed a terrifying cyclone with a diameter of hundreds of kilometers, and the lightning visible to the naked eye continued to swim in the cyclone. Immediately afterwards, there was only a click, and a terrifying bolt of lightning fell from the sky, striking the ruins of a tall building in the distance. As if a switch had been turned on, countless lightning bolts descended, some of which dissipated in the air, but most of them still directly hit the ground. Click. Click. The roar of lightning is endless. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 195. 194 New enemy. Immediately make several bases prepare for lightning protection, turn off the power, and turn off the communication. Red Queen 00002, Red Queen 00003, get ready immediately. Chunyuan said loudly. The contact between Red Queen 00001, 00002, and 00003 has been interrupted, please carry out the maintenance of the host in time. Bastard. Chunyuan also immediately thought that the Red Queen was not a product of this world, and had never considered encountering such a terrible ion storm weather. In addition, the host of Red Queen is full of fragile electronic components, so it is likely to be damaged in a lightning strike. Not only the Red Queen, but Chunyuan saw that the NS-4 civilian robot next to him also squatted on the ground with his hands wrapped around his knees, and entered the self-protection mode. Wang Jinsong. How do you usually deal with this ion storm? Chunyuan asked. There is no way to deal with it. The lightning from the ion storm can blow up all the capacitors in an instant. All we can do is drain as much as possible, and then. What is it? Pray. Wang Jinsong spread his hands and said, pray that lightning won't fall on your head. No way. The lightning storm has been raging for so long, and there's nothing you can do? Chunyuan said in surprise. Maybe the core area of NOD or GDI has such cutting-edge technology, but as far as I know, there is no such place. You have already done the math. When the ion storm comes, the biggest disaster actually comes from the aircraft. The aircraft will fall instantly, causing great losses. Wang Jinsong said. How long does the ion storm usually last? Look at your luck. Good luck for half an hour and an hour, bad luck for 2 or 3 days. Among the recorded ion storms, the longest duration was the one that happened in Jincheng City 30 years ago. It lasted for 8 days. Almost all the electronic equipment in the city was destroyed, even the electronic calendar was not spared. Wang Jinsong said. Chunyuan stopped talking, and immediately checked the status of each unit in the infinite base system in his mind. He found that both NS-4 and the Red Queen had lost contact. It should be because they both have AI and various communications are relatively intensive. But there is also AI, but the protector robot has nothing to do. It is still patrolling the streets and alleys of the 3 villages, and it keeps saying, protect and serve, protect and serve, protect and serve. Chunyuan could only think that the manufacturer of this robot had fully considered all kinds of extreme situations at that time, so it was not affected at all. Looking at it like this, it is estimated that it will be fine for another 100 or 200 years. If I have the opportunity, I really want to see this company. Continuing to check, Chunyuan found that the only crab spider engineering robot still working in the mining area was still running. He was immediately surprised, and immediately stopped the production of T-72 tanks on the 3rd level production line, and switched to producing crab spiders engineering robot. Because it felt that it was temporarily unavailable, the crab spider type engineering robot was always only the one built at the beginning. After all, the resources and production time required for this kind of robot are considerable. But now it seems that because of the ravages of the ion storm, the crab spider type engineering robots must have standing deployments in various places. After letting the crab spider robot in the mining area immediately start repairing the host of Red Queen 00003, Chunyuan turned around and ran towards the door. Where are you going? When the ion storm is raging, it's best not to run around. Wang Jinsong quickly grabbed him. No. I have to go to each base to check it out for myself. There are still those villages. Chunyuan said. Then you'd better not drive a convertible. Didn't you build several other VSI infantry fighting vehicles last time? Drive this kind of car. Wang Jinsong said. Chunyuan did have 5 VSI infantry fighting vehicles parked in the ruins of the parking lot outside the Nuhua base. They were built when he just killed Chi Wei, destroyed the Black Wolf tribe, and built an auxiliary manufacturing station there. It has not been used much since then. It was originally intended to be sold to Lin Huo, but it just happens to be driven out now. Who made him usually have a tough style and like to drive a Hummer with an open top? I'm going to. Yi grabbed Chen Yuyan's arm, looked at the endless dark clouds and lightning in the sky, but there was a little excitement in her beautiful eyes. Just as the ion storm was raging across the land, an army was stationed more than 30 kilometers west of the ruined city. More than a dozen large trucks were parked in the middle, and the carriages were opened. Some soldiers were carrying various ammunition, fuel, and supplies, making preparations for the final battle. Around the convoy, there are a large number of tanks and armored vehicles. There are both M2F light tanks, and there is also a very low and stocky tank with a small and extremely forward-leaning turret, which is equipped with a 6-barrel cannon and a 90mm caliber gun. In addition, there are dozens of motorcycles with closed cockpits, and multiple rocket launchers similar to the rocket pods of armed helicopters are installed on both sides of the motorcycles. What is even more eye-catching are the 5 large-caliber self-propelled artillery behind the army. In addition, hundreds of jeeps and pickup trucks followed, all of which were full of soldiers in black uniforms. Whether it's these soldiers, tanks, or various armored vehicles, there is a striking mark sprayed on it, a blood-red base map, and a ferocious black scorpion tail inside a black triangle frame. This is the mark of the Brotherhood of Nod. In a truck serving as a command center, several communications soldiers and staff officers are busy in the large compartment, while on an electronic sand table stands a man wearing a Nod officer uniform and a red beret, with an incomparable face, vicious, strong, and burly man. And beside this officer, stood another person timidly. If Ho Xiangyang, Wang Ji, and other old men from the Black Wolf tribe were here, they would definitely know him. Lu Shan, one of Qi Wei's captains. Moreover, it was also the captain who proposed to Qi Wei to surrender to Lu Weiwei, the head of the Silver Regiment of Torch City, in exchange for support. At that time, Wang Ji had already surrendered to Chen Yuyan, and Ho Xiangyang was dealing with the wounded who had turned into zombies in the infirmary, so no one knew about it. In addition, not long after he put forward this proposal, Chen Yuyan called at the door, and there was chaos everywhere, so no one noticed that Lu Shan had already run away ahead of time. Moreover, he really found reinforcements. Major Feng Tao. We have entered the ion storm area. The scale of this ion storm is very large, and it is estimated that it will last for a long time. A staff officer came to the big man and said after giving a military salute. A ferocious smile appeared on Feng Tao's rough face, then, take advantage of the ion storm and directly raid Iron Hammer Town. Thank you for the 1000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 196. 195 Launch an Offensive. Upon hearing Feng Tao's decision, Lu Shan's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly said, "No way. Major Feng. Didn't General Lu Weiwei say that we should just take over the mining area of the Black Wolf tribe? Lin Huo's army also quite a few, we will only increase the number of variables if we provoke him." Feng Tao's smile seemed a bit contemptuous. He, Iron Hammer Town happens to be stuck on the road leading into the city from the ruins. If you want to bypass Iron Hammer Town, you need to go through the small road in the ruins over there. I'm also doing it for the march. Is it efficient? I understand. Lu Shan bowed his head and said. Anyway, he didn't care what happened to Iron Hammer Town, he just wanted to go to the mining area as soon as possible, and then help Qi Wei win the game again, and kill Chen Yuyan with Feng Tao's help. Next, he can become the agent of Lu Weiwei's army in this mining area, and it is also possible to replace Qi Wei. When he thought that he had the opportunity to monopolize that mine, he felt his heart beat. It's good that you understand. The reason why General Lu agreed to the Black Wolf tribe's request for help is to gain a foothold here and do more things in the future. That's why he let me take full charge of the affairs here. Feng Tao smiled, as if there were countless craters on his rough face. Understand? Feng Tao patted Lu Shan on the shoulder again and said, don't worry. Because of this, we have to do better than General Lu's expectations. He hoped that we will fight steadily, first gain a firm foothold in the Helang tribe, and then we will go all the way, annexing Hammer Town bit by bit. However, if we take down the entire ruined city in one go, won't he look at us with admiration? Lu Shan nodded and bowed, but still worried, but Lin Huo. Feng Tao ignored him, but said loudly to the staff next to him, send out the attack motorcycle team immediately. If Lin Huo is not stupid, he should send out scouts during the ion storm. First, wipe out all his scouts. Establish an artillery position 20 kilometers away from Hammertown. Move. Immediately. The whole army moved immediately, like a giant beast waking up from a deep sleep. Motorcycle drivers in tight black leather jackets ran to their motorcycles, and the glass cover imitating the hatch of a fighter jet opened. They rode on the motorcycles, leaned forward on them, and started the engines. The high-power engine of the motorcycle roared, and at the same time as the cockpit was closed, dozens of motorcycles shot out and disappeared into the misty air within a few seconds. After that, the 5 self-propelled artillery also marched in 5 directions under the escort of infantry fighting vehicles and more than a dozen attack motorcycles. They will establish 5 mutually dispersed artillery positions. The tank force marched in 2 parts in a pincer shape. It is worth mentioning that the strange tank with a low body, a small turret and equipped with a 6-barreled machine gun and a 90mm caliber short-barreled rapid-fire gun is moving very fast, even leaving behind the M2F light tank. Major Feng Tao led the supply trucks and the pickup trucks to transport soldiers in the last action, and 10 strange tanks and some infantry fighting vehicles were left here as reserves. At the same time, in the luxury villa in Hammer Town, Lin Huo was putting a strawberry into his mouth, chewing it carefully, and at the same time checking a document in his hand. At this time, Gen Yu, the head of Xingfu village, was also sitting opposite him, sipping a cup of tea. AMXV Psi infantry fighting vehicle? This kind of equipment can improve the mechanization of our army, but it is not urgently needed for me. Frankly speaking, I need more powerful long-range firepower, so I am very interested in yours. I am more interested in the LG-1 light howitzer, and by the way, there are also terrorist robots. Lin Huo said lightly. Gen Yu smiled and said, it's not impossible to sell you the LG-1 light howitzer, but you have to solve the problem of ammunition yourself. Because our production line is very tight and we can't produce too many shells. Ammunition. Lin Huo leaned back on the back of the sofa, looked at the ceiling and said slowly, our own shells and ammunition are also imported from other places. Can you tell me where I can make it? Maybe we can solve this problem together. Gen Yu said. It's okay to tell you, I bought the shells for these artillery from Shaijin town. However, there are surrounding towns of Torch City. The commander of Torch City is a Silver Regiment commander. If you want to live longer, it's best not to deal with him. Lin Huo said. Why? Gen Yu asked. Because he is a member of the Brotherhood of Nod, the fake one. The people of the Brotherhood of Nod are basically unreasonable. It is quite appropriate to say that they are a group of lunatics. I think you understand it yourself. Lin Huo said, there are some things I can tell you. His expression became serious. During the last war, this place originally belonged to the Nod Far East War Zone East Division 3. After the Yan Kingdom fell out with Kane, this division became a mess. GDI, Yan Kingdom, Nod's troops were fighting everywhere. In the end, the industrial base of the sector was basically destroyed. Coupled with the Tiberidum natural disaster, several major forces withdrew from here. Lu Weiwei took the opportunity to rise in the vacuum period after the war and occupied Torch City. He had great ambitions, joined the already disorganized Brotherhood of Nod, and wanted to unify the entire East Division 3. And, he believed that if he could do that, he would be promoted. If it wasn't for his lack of strength and Tai Long staring at him ready to move, he would have expanded everywhere. Then, how can you still import shells from him? Gan Yu asked. Lin Hua waved his hand and said, it's just a personal relationship, you don't need to ask too much. In short, the problem of shells is also very difficult for me. I can give you some discounts in terms of construction teams and building materials, but the problem of ammunition for the LG-1 light howitzer, I hope you guys can help me out. Gan Yu pretended to be embarrassed and said, in order to produce more shells, we have to stop working on many other things, this is a bit embarrassing. Boom boom crack. Click. Lightning continued to strike from the sky. The dense and thick clouds have been suppressed extremely low. Looking up, it seems that another piece of land has appeared in the sky. The surrounding visibility was very poor, and thick fog and smoke filled the air. A roar of engines pierced the darkness, only to see a pickup truck fleeing desperately, and a soldier behind the car was grabbing a 12.7 mm caliber heavy machine gun and firing wildly at the rear. Da-da-da. 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 Flames from the muzzle of the gun illuminated the darkness from time to time. Behind the pickup truck, followed by a fully enclosed black motorcycle. The motorcycle is very flexible, shaking from side to side constantly, so that the front of the machine gun's firepower falls into the air. With the movement of the motorcycle, the beams of light emitted by the high-power headlights in front also kept shaking in the darkness. Run! Run! Be sure to pass the news back. The co-pilot of the pickup truck also shouted loudly. He poked his head out of the window and opened fire desperately with an assault rifle. But even if the small caliber bullets from the rifle hit the fully enclosed body of the motorcycle, it would have no effect at all. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 197. 196 Standard Tactics. All I saw was that the motorcycle started to accelerate suddenly, and the rocket launchers installed on both sides of the rear of the motorcycle were deployed, followed by a long tail of smoke, and then 2 rockets were launched. Boom! Boom! The first shot failed. The explosion from the rocket caused the pickup truck to shake violently. The gunman behind the heavy machine gun was knocked up, lost his grip, and fell screaming. The attacking motorcycle at the back swung lightly, dodging the falling Hammertown soldiers. This time there was no interference from the heavy machine gun, and the motorcycle no longer dodged left and right, but directly attached to the back, locking the pickup truck. The automatic loading device in the rocket launcher turned, and 2 brand new rockets were pushed into the launching device. Without any hesitation, the driver pressed the launch button. Call out! Call out! 2 rockets hit the pickup truck, this time without any suspense. The explosion swept away in an instant, and the burning wreckage of the pickup truck still rushed forward for hundreds of meters under the effect of inertia before slowly stopping. Such killings continued to be staged outside Iron Hammer Town. The ion storm cut off all communication, and the severe weather brought by the strong low pressure also reduced visibility to the lowest level, and the continuous explosion of lightning also covered up the sound of the explosion. Coupled with the excellent performance of the attack motorcycle, none of the reconnaissance troops sent out by Hammer Town could go back and report the news. At this time, Feng Tao's army had already begun to establish positions on the outskirts of Iron Hammer Town. The 5 self-propelled artillery had arrived at the predetermined position, and 5 artillery positions more than 10 kilometers away from each other spread out in a fan shape. Relying on the powerful mobility of the attack motorcycle, these 5 artillery positions can also be covered. This self-propelled artillery, called arty, resembles the M-110 self-propelled artillery in appearance, but has a caliber of only 155 mm. After coming to a complete stop, a few soldiers jumped out of the pickup truck following the artillery, and began to carry ammunition, and put down the hoe behind the self-propelled artillery track chassis, buried deeply in the soil, to offset the powerful recoil of the artillery. At the same time, Feng Tao's armored forces also arrived at the predetermined location less than 5 kilometers west of Iron Hammer Town. This town, which originally belonged to the outskirts of the city, has long been destroyed by war and natural disasters, and has become a ruin, but the terrain is not as complicated as the ruins of the high-rise buildings. After the battlefield was selected, all the strange tanks in the army were seen driving forward, scattered and arranged to form a line of defense. Immediately afterwards, the engines of these tanks started to run with afterburner, the ferocious mechanical claws in front began to rotate rapidly, and at the same time, the hydraulic suspension device also began to push up the tail of the tanks. The mechanical claws began to dig the ground, and large pieces of soil were dug out and piled up behind. The tank actually stood up, and it was at a 60-degree angle to the ground. And the small turret of the tank began to move backwards to the rear end, and the mechanical claws kept sinking the tank. In just half a minute, these tanks armed themselves into a semi-submerged fixed turret. The other M2F light tanks used the two wings as a mobile force. After entering the battlefield, other infantry also used infantry fighting vehicles and ruined terrain to set up a line of defense. At this time, Feng Tao, who had established a temporary command post at the rear of the battlefield, looked at the mechanical watch he was wearing, and said to the orderly next to him, "Immediately go and notify all the artillery positions, and at 2100 hours sharp, bombard Iron Hammer Town. Each cannon fires 5 shells." Yes. 5 attacking motorcycles headed for the artillery positions. I agree with this proposal. After getting 5 terrorist robots, I will transfer the blueprint of the production line of the Scorpion I assault rifle to you. Lin Huo said to Genyu with a smile. They have already negotiated a series of cooperation this time. Basically, the Legion of Ruin sells various weapons and equipment, and Hammer Town helps Xingfu Village in its construction. At the same time, Hammer Town is also responsible for the road construction from Hammer Town to Xingfu Village. Not only that, Hammer Town will also help the Legion of Ruin to get in touch with the outside world, and provide convenience for them to import and export goods in the future. It can be said that everyone takes what they need and everyone is happy. In the face of interests, both parties hid the small actions between each other in the bottom of their hearts, and pretended that they never happened. When Genyu and Lin Huo were talking happily, suddenly Lin Huo's cold-faced Lieutenant Jin Shan came over and whispered something to him. Lin Huo's face suddenly became gloomy, and he didn't hide too much, and said, "Send another batch of scouts immediately, and we must find out why the previous batch of scouts disappeared. Also, order all troops to enter the combat readiness state immediately." Seeing this scene, Genyu also looked solemn, and quickly asked, "Major Lin, what happened?" Lin Huo looked at him and said, "There's nothing to hide. Because the radar will fail in the ion storm weather, so when the ion storm comes, we will usually send out reconnaissance troops to scout around to avoid being attacked. However, all the reconnaissance troops I sent out this time have disappeared, and no one has returned. Is there anything we can do for you?" Genyu immediately saw that this was an opportunity, and hurriedly said, "Maybe we can send troops over to help?" "Not for the time being, please go back and report to me now. I will take care of things here, and if I need help, I will ask Mr. Chenyuyan." "Well, that's it." After speaking, Lin Huo stood up come and walk out the door. Sudden. There was a bang outside. The mountains shook for a while, and even the chandelier on the ceiling was shaking violently. The flames of the explosion came from outside the window, illuminating the room red. Boom! Boom! Boom. Explosions continued to sound, and the entire Hammer town suddenly became chaotic. Countless people ran out of the house crying and shouting, but they didn't know where to go, so they could only run around. We were bombed. Jin Shan roared loudly. Organize the evacuation of civilians immediately. Don't let them run around. The attack is likely to come from the west of the city, let everyone take refuge in the east of the city. Lin Huo said loudly, also, gather all armored troops immediately, we must rush out and expand battle lines. Can't let them keep bombing our towns. Boom. Another shell landed a block away, and several houses were blown to pieces. The shockwave of the explosion knocked the forest fire to the ground. He seemed to wake up to something, and shouted loudly, wait a minute. Don't attack rashly. This is not standard tactic. Damn it, it's Lu Weiwei's people who came to the door. What to do? What to do? Gan Yu also panicked. Go back immediately and ask Xinyuan for help. Lin Huo said loudly. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 198. 197 Call for Help. Xinyuan looked anxiously at the dark clouds in the sky that seemed to be overwhelming with Mount Tai, and the lightning and thunder that seemed to be coming at the end of the day. It's been a whole night, has this ion storm dissipated? Father! Lightning! Lightning! Yi shouted excitedly, pointing at the sky. Xinyuan patted her head. The scale of the ion cloud is very large this time, and it will probably last at least 2 or 3 days. A young man stood beside Xinyuan and said. His name is Genzhong, and he is Gen Yu's son who used agricultural books as storybooks for him since he was a child. She looks like she is in her early 20s, her eyebrows are pretty, she feels a little frail, and her complexion is slightly pale. At this moment, his eyes were on Yi more than Xinyuan, but Yi regarded him as heir from the beginning to the end. Xinyuan didn't care about his little gesture, he just looked at a blue light curtain not far away, where the soilless plant factory was being built. Because of the ion storm, most of the villagers hid in the basement, so this miraculous scene was not seen. Of course, it doesn't matter if you see it, you can't hide it anyway, and Xinyuan has gradually begun to use religious explanations to brainwash these people. In the former sphere of influence of the Brotherhood of Nod, this trick worked well. After the ion storm came, Xinyuan went to the Black Wolf base and the mining area, and then went to Muhi village and Beatty village to check. After confirming that there was nothing wrong, he came to Xingfu village and started construction of plant factories. Gen Yu was discussing cooperation with Lin Huo in Iron Hammer Town, and Xinyuan directly found Genzhong and asked him to take over the plant factory. They have had a makeshift sleep at Gen Yu's house, and are now waiting for the final completion of the building here. After 10 minutes, the blue light curtain flashed and disappeared suddenly, and a single-story steel structure building covering an area of thousands of square meters had appeared there. This is, Genzhong was dumbfounded when he saw the scene for the first time. Let's go, this is what I'm going to give you, a large-scale soilless cultivation plant factory. You have to thoroughly understand and be familiar with the instruments here. In the future, if you want to feed more and more people under our hands, you will rely on you. Maybe, you will become another academician Yuan. Xinyuan patted Genzhong on the shoulder, and led him over. The front of the plant factory is the control center, and most of the building area behind is a constant temperature room. Genzhong looked at the brand new instruments inside, those constant temperature control equipment, automatic irrigation equipment, etc., and couldn't help but love it. These things. It's amazing. I've only seen these devices in books. Genzhong said excitedly. I still have some seeds here, potatoes, sweet potatoes and other food crops that are relatively easy to grow. Let's start with these. The key is the deployment of nutrient solution. Of course, this is your professional field. In short, starting today, you are my Minister of Agriculture. If you need manpower, just ask your father. I will send you a few robots to help you later. Chen Yuyan said. Robot? The protector type? Gen Zhong asked. It seems that this kind of robot is already familiar to people, and they have begun to get used to living with protector type robots. A more advanced and smarter type. After the ion storm is over, I will leave it to you. Chen Yuyan replied. Thank you. Thank you. Gen Zhong was so grateful that he grabbed Chen Yuyan's hand and kept shaking it. Okay, I hope there will be hundreds of millions of people thanking you in the future. Chen Yuyan patted him on the shoulder again. Do it well. While they were chatting, suddenly there was a roar of engines at the entrance of the village. Chen Yuyan's face changed, and he hurriedly asked Gen Zhong to go to the plant factory, and he walked towards the entrance of the village with Yi. All I saw was a Hummer Jeep rushing over desperately at an extremely fast speed. When he saw Chen Yuyan, he slammed on the brakes, and then the Jeep flicked. If the Hummer Jeep hadn't had excellent grip and chassis center of gravity, it would have been overturned. However, when Chen Yuyan saw the people in the car clearly, his heart sank suddenly, and his face immediately became gloomy. In the car are Gen Yu and his driver. Could it be that the negotiations in Hammer Town broke down and Lin Huo turned his face? Otherwise, Gen Yu couldn't be so panic-stricken. Boss Yan! Boss Yan! It's not good! It's not good! Gen Yu yelled loudly before getting out of the car. He kicked the car door, but he only had one hand, and he couldn't hold it firmly, and there was a thud. He fell to the ground, but still yelled in his mouth, "It's not good. The big thing is not good. What's the matter? Calm down and talk quickly." Chen Yuyan quickly stepped up and grabbed Gen Yu, and put him on the stone next to him to sit down. Gen Yu swallowed hard, calmed down a little, and then said, "Tai Hammer Town was bombed. I was almost killed in the city. Lin Huo has already led troops to attack. Who's bombarding Hammer Town? Is it Iron Dragon? It's not Iron Dragon. It's Torch City. The head of Bian of Torch City, Lu Weiwei." Gen Yu said loudly. Even Chen Yuyan gasped this time. Why did Torch City call here first when there was no response from Tailong? Ever since he crossed over and came into contact with the Aborigines here, Torch City has been lingering in his ears. Almost everything that cannot be done here can be done in Torch City. All the things that are not available here can be bought in Torch City. The Torch City is a symbol of strength and prosperity. It is a symbol of civilization next to the unfettered area around the ruined city. Chen Yuyan never thought about why he would fight with the people of Torch City, and it was still unprepared. Apart from that, what does Captain Bian mean? He subconsciously connected the silver with the experimenter's silver group. Why did the people in Torch City attack Lin Huo? Do you have any clues? Does it have anything to do with us? Chen Yuyan immediately wanted to find out what happened. The first thing he thought of was how to get his army of ruins out of the accident. Besides, don't confront Torch City head-on. He needs time, he needs space. But neither was ever adequately given to him. And most importantly, Torch City is so far away from here, and the ruined city doesn't have much strategic value, and there is no conflict of interest between my side and Torch City. So, is it because of the forest fire? I don't know. I have no clue at all. Even Lin Huo doesn't know why the people in Torch City would do it directly. Gen Yu said. How is the battle going now? Gen Yu shook his head and said, I don't know. First, Lin Huo said that all his reconnaissance troops lost contact, and then Iron Hammer Town was bombarded. Lin Huo immediately organized resistance, and then he suddenly said that this is Nod's standard tactic, and then let the adjutant Jin Shan also lead a tank force to outflank the city from both wings. Nod's standard tactics? Torch City is from Nod. Chen Yuyan frowned. I don't know. I just heard about Lin Huo just now. Gan Yu shook his head and said, Lin Huo asked me to ask you for help. He said that he could not resist the offensive of Torch City alone. Thank you for the 1000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. Thanks to Nyomichuan, Watermelon, and Sakura Wyume for the 100 starting point coins. Recommend a book. Start from Controlling 10 Trillions of Gods and Demons. I like this kind of book about playing crowd tactics the most. And it's simple and clear, without a cultivation system that starts with a few thousand words. Such a fantasy is a good fantasy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 199. 198 Deployment. Chen Yuyan pondered for a while, sending troops to support. This is a very good opportunity to expand our military presence to the scope of Iron Hammer Town. This is a good opportunity to take advantage of the opportunity to annex Iron Hammer Town. Annex Iron Hammer Town? Boss Yan, Gan Yu was startled by Chen Yuyan's appetite. He still knows how strong the Ruins Legion is. There are about 1000 B.O.Ws, a dozen tanks and armored vehicles. Although many soldiers have signed up to join the army, they have basically not been trained. Even if these people are counted, there are only 80 soldiers. With such strength, he wants to annex Iron Hammer Town. You must know that Lin Huo has dozens of tanks, more than 1000 well-trained soldiers, and more than 5000 people as support. However, the problem now is to find out how many people the other party has come and what is their purpose. No matter what, the intruders must be repelled before we can talk about the rest. Chen Yuyan put his arms around his eyes and closed his eyes as he thought about it. Soon, he had a plan in his mind. He opened his eyes suddenly. Gan Yu, I'll hand over the 80 legionnaires stationed at the Black Wolf base to you immediately. Gather all the vehicles and make room for people in the 3 villages as much as possible. Come out. Muhi village and Beatty village are welcome, just do whatever you want. Then wait for my order. Okay. Gan Yu quickly nodded in agreement. Yi, come with me, let's go back to Nuwa's base first. Chen Yuyan pulled Yi and jumped into the car that Gan Yu drove over at once, with a bang on the accelerator, and quickly left in the dust. Wang Jinsong was found in the Nuwa base, and he was studying the tracker day and night. I am full of interest in this monster that was only eroded by Tiberium, and then fused with T-virus and Tiberia to further mutate. Chen Yuyan explained to him some information about the newly manufactured Ne-beta parasite and the T-72 main battle tank, and then went to the Helang base to lay out a battle plan for Drago. No way, during the raging ion storm, all communication was paralyzed, it was so hard. After the arrangements were made, Chen Yuyan and Yi drove directly to Iron Hammer Town. Hammer Town is now in chaos, with a large number of people crowded on the east side of the town, and some soldiers are doing their best to maintain order. The flames of the explosion still blazed up in the town from time to time, accompanied by the thunderous explosion and the obvious shaking of the ground. Chen Yuyan jumped out of the car, grabbed a soldier from Iron Hammer Town and asked loudly, "Where is Lin Huo?" The soldier didn't react for a moment, and didn't know whether to answer or keep it a secret, he just stared and hesitated. Chen Yuyan slapped him without saying a word, and said sharply, "I'm here to help him. Do you want to wait here to be blown to death? Tell me quickly. Where is he?" "Major Lin should be in the barracks on the northwest side." The soldier finally replied. Chen Yuyan threw him aside, and then drove directly towards the northwest side of the town. On the northwest side of the town, there is a very large barracks area, where there is some atmosphere of war, rather than chaos. Rows of soldiers are gathering according to their respective establishments, and officers at all levels are assigning combat tasks. A large number of tanks and armored vehicles are parked in the supply area, being replenished with ammunition and fuel, and several trailers are struggling to drag the damaged tanks to the maintenance platform. After explaining his purpose to the patrolling soldiers, Chen was quickly let go and went all the way to the headquarters. This is a building with only one floor, but it has a large area. There are several double-mounted anti-aircraft machine guns on the upper floor. Going down the stairs to the second basement floor, Chen saw Lin Huo. I saw that he was in a mess now, with several burns on his body, and a long scar on his handsome face was also scratched by the shrapnel. A nurse was helping him clean the wound. Seeing Chen approaching, Lin Huo said bluntly, "We are attacked, and we are from Torch City." "Why do people from Torch City attack you?" "Torch City is from Nod." "How many people have they come?" Chen asked a series of questions. The person who came was the 3rd Independent Armored Regiment under Torch City, and the head of the regiment was Major Feng Tao. He had sent an ultimatum before, asking me to put down my arms and surrender within 24 hours, and accept the garrison of Torch City. Under the jurisdiction of Torch City. Lin Huo's face was a little ugly. "If you refuse, we will bombard Hammer Town 24 hours a day until the place is plowed to level ground." "Then why did Torch City choose to go to war with you at this time? They didn't do this before?" Chen asked. Lin Huo glanced at him and said, "Two major events have happened in Ruin City recently. The first is the destruction of the Black Wolf tribe, and the second is the destruction of the Junkrat gang. Before that, although Lu Weiwei, the head of Torch City's Bian, wanted to annex Iron Hammer Town, but he was still confronting Iron Dragon at the same time, coupled with the harassment of Junkrat gang and the existence of local Snake Chi Wei, he has not been able to make up his mind. But now, you have made the situation in the ruined city easier, so here he comes. In this matter, you must take responsibility." "He, what responsibility should I bear for Lu Weiwei beating you?" Chen sneered. "I don't want to go around in circles with you. Let's be honest, I'm an independent warlord. I have nothing to do with those forces except for occasionally pulling Nod's tiger skin to scare outsiders. Because I don't want to be involved in Nod and GDI in the war between. It is precisely because of this that I can start a series of cooperation with you. But what do you think would happen if Nod took over here? You will lose all independence. Maybe they will distribute you some advanced equipment, but they will also place personnel here, intervene in your management, and finally merge you into their chariot completely." Lin Huo said sharply, "If you don't want to do this, then we must cooperate." Chen was also a cheerful person, and immediately asked, "How is the battle going?" Lin Huo pointed to a huge map spread out next to it, on which the deployment of some troops of both sides had been marked with red and blue chess pieces. However, compared with the blue pieces representing one's own side, the number of red pieces representing places is very small. This is not because the opponent's troops are small and weak, but because they don't know it at all. Lin Huo pointed to the map and said, "Nod's standard tactic is to use highly mobile armored units to wander around to harass, and then use self-propelled artillery groups to build positions and bombard continuously to wear down the opponent's patience. Then use a large number of infantry to cooperate with tick tanks, build a line of defense, wait for the opponent's counterattack, and when the opponent launches a counterattack, take the opportunity to outflank the rear with mobile troops. I led the armored troops to test it before, and the area about 4 kilometers west of the city is their frontal defense line. The line was so close that I didn't have enough space to spread out from the wings, so I was forced to engage the tick tanks on the line and lost 10 M2F light tanks. Their artillery positions are in the rear, but I don't know where. Feng Tao is sure that his equipment is better than mine, so you know why I urgently need the LG-1 light howitzer, right? All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 200. 199 Joining Forces. Chen pondered for a while and said, "How's the performance of that kind of tick tank?" Lin Huo replied quickly, It's a new type of tank that NOD has just started to install, and many theaters have already started to equip it. This tank has a small turret, with a 90mm caliber rapid-fire gun and a 6-barreled Getter machine gun. The top armor is very thick, and the front is equipped with mechanical claws. When necessary, it can be like this. As Lin Huo said, he took a hard box of cigarettes, then erected the cigarette box, opened the cover to use it as a turret, and took another cigarette and placed it on the cover as a barrel. And half buried in the soil, with a thick top armor against the enemy. What kind of weird design is this? Chen Yuyan was stunned. Because the growth of tiberium mines will extract various elements from the ground in many places will become very soft, and this kind of tank will come into being. And don't underestimate it, half bury yourself. A tick tank buried in the ground has a very small radar cross-section and a very small bombed area. In other words, it is not easy to be found and not easy to be hit. Even if it is hit, the thick top armor can withstand it. In a frontal conflict, it is not a problem for one tick tank to eliminate more than a dozen M2F light tanks. So, now I have no ability to break through Feng Tao's blockade. Lin Huo explained. Chen Yuyan found a stool and sat down, raised his legs. Let's be honest, have you ever played this game? Command and Conquer. Lin Huo snorted coldly and said, I don't know what you're talking about. Admit it, so we won't be so tired talking. You know Murphy's, and the chosen one under you can do magic, and you can do magic at the same time, right? Chen Yuyan said in a low voice. Lin Huo turned his head to the other side, and after a long silence, he said, if you can help me repel Feng Tao's attack, then I will tell you what I know. That's why I came here, let's get started. Chen Yuyan spread out one hand as a gesture of invitation. How many people did you bring? Lin Huo asked. For now, I'm alone, and the other troops are gathering. Chen Yuyan said. Then what are we going to do? Lin Huo suppressed the anger in his heart and said, I have to remind you. If Iron Hammer Town falls and you get the Torch City army advancing to the base, you won't be able to resist at all. Start to evacuate the people. Chen Yuyan replied flatly. Where are you going to evacuate? Wait a minute. Lin Huo instantly understood what he meant, and said firmly, this is impossible. These people are my most precious property. Only with them can I continue to develop. You want to swallow me in one gulp? Dreaming. Chen Yuyan sighed softly and said, how long can you resist without me? You can't even produce shells by yourself. And my further development is indeed slow because of the lack of population. Since there is this opportunity, why not? How about taking the opportunity to unite? I have industry and you have population, so we can develop better. If we want to form a team, it is the silver team, right? Yes. Lin Huo replied smoothly, and then he realized that he had slipped his tongue, and immediately glared at Chen Yuyan. You evacuate the people to Xingfu village, Muhe village, and Beidi village. Before I came, people had already started gathering vehicles and freeing up living space. No matter what, these people can't die, and they can't be chaotic. Chen Yuyan said it doesn't matter, just keep talking. Lin Huo thought for a while, then turned back to his adjutant Jin Shan and said, immediately arrange for the evacuation of the people, and go to the 3 villages on the other side of Xingfu village. Chen Yuyan asked again, how long is the ultimatum Feng Tao gave us? He deliberately said it was us to increase the sense of intimacy. Sure enough, Lin Huo's face softened a lot, and he replied, it's less than 20 hours. Then as soon as possible, we need to evacuate all the people during this period, and make a resistance plan. In this ion storm, it is best not to walk around outside, so you need to take a car. This also brings difficulties to the evacuation work. There are some difficulties. Chen Yuyan said, I have tried my best to collect vehicles, and you should also prepare the vehicles on your side. Cars are parked on the east side of Hammertown. A large number of people in Hammertown are crowded here and want to get on the car as soon as possible. Dozens of soldiers are maintaining order, letting people get on the car in an orderly manner without crowding, and let the cars full of people drive away as soon as possible. There are 2 armed pickup trucks parked next to them, and a few Hammertown soldiers are standing on the pickup trucks, using loudspeakers to say loudly, "We have been attacked shamelessly by the enemy, and they want to kill us all. But please don't panic, we are already preparing to counterattack and completely wipe out the invaders. Let everyone evacuate to prevent everyone from being affected by the fighting, not to flee. We will go home soon. Victory will eventually belong to us." After ensuring everyone's safety, our soldiers can fight with confidence. Don't run around. Everyone can get in the car. We are well prepared. No need to bring luggage. Everyone is just going out for 2 days to escape. You will be back home in 2 days. Major Lin will compensate for all losses. Don't panic. At this time, there was a rumbling sound, and only a team of more than 10 T-72 main battle tanks drove over and slowly entered the city. I have to say that compared with the M2F light tank, the visual tension of the T-72 main battle tank is really too strong. The body is lower, but more solid and compact, just like a lump of iron. The explosive reactive armor hung on the body also makes the tank look more ferocious. It is completely a terrifying steel beast. Especially the 125mm caliber main gun makes the 75mm caliber gun of the M2F light tank look like a toothpick. Seeing these tanks, there was some commotion among the crowd. Seeing this, the soldier holding the horn shouted, "Did you see that? This is our reinforcements. This is our new tank. Have you seen the main gun? The M2F tank can't even stand in front of it. Scum doesn't even count." Finally, there was a burst of cheers from the crowd, and then more and more people cheered. They boldly leaned over and slapped the body of the T-72 main battle tank with their hands, presenting to the drivers of these super tanks best regards. Although these T-72s are neither super tanks, the drivers inside cannot come out to say hello to them. These people living in the marginal areas are so simple, whoever can give them enough food and a place to sleep is the savior in their hearts, and they are willing to follow whoever. You can actually get T-72 tanks. And there are so many of them. Even in the arms market, it is impossible to sell this kind of weapon to individuals or small customers. And you can also subdue Murphys for you useful. How far have you developed in the world of Resident Evil? Lin Huo stood by and watched this scene, and couldn't help but sigh. Anyway, Chen Yuyan had already seen through it, so he admitted it openly. It's better than you imagined, and it's worse than you imagined. Chen Yuyan replied meaningfully, however, can the T-72 tank fight against the Tick tank? I haven't tried it, so it's hard to say. But what I can tell you is that main battle tanks have gradually become inapplicable in this world. Lin Huo shook his head and said, "Thank you for the 1000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. Thank you for the 100 starting point coins that were rewarded by all the onlookers.